Hi, everyone. We have author Shakir Rashaan here, and he's going to tell us a little bit about himself.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. My name is Shakir Rashaan. I am the national best-selling author of 11 books at current, with probably 12 and 13 coming in 2021. My signature series is an erotica series called the Nubian Underworld. At the current moment, it's 4 books that are currently in print, with number 5 coming this time next year. As a matter of fact, I've got the release set for December 2021. I am also a part of Naleda Kai's tribe called Success. We are a group of 30 plus at this particular point, where we just basically do a lot of promotions of the authors within the tribe itself. Also, we do different anthology projects along the lines, and series anthologies as well. Um, Other than that, I have my most recent book, Love, Lust, and Beautiful Liars. This one is currently out as we're speaking right now. Um, that one is basically my international weapons dealer who happens to really want to retire at the end of, he's pretty much kind of done everything that he needed to do with regard to the actual industry that he was in, and feels like, he's got other things that he wants to do, wants to ride off into the sunset, that type of thing. Wants to get back with basically one that got away while he was working, in a manner of speaking. The problem, of course, is he's got rival dealers that want to retire him permanently, if you get my meaning. And then the woman that he wants to retire with has her own entanglements that she has to get out of, so that they can actually be together at that point. So that's the long and the short of Love, Lust, and Beautiful Liars.
Okay. And what inspired you to start writing?
I actually started, I won't say writing per se, I actually started storytelling when I was about maybe 5, 6 years old. My grandfather started me off on that. There were different books that I would learn how to read, and was so busy trying to be excited, trying to tell him all about it. And he was like, well, no, you're not telling it right. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not telling it right? So he literally got me to the point of, okay, well, if you're gonna sit here and have a conversation with me, you need to tell the story so as if I hadn't read it before.
Okay.
So it started that spark from there. And from that point, it was really kind of off and running for the most part. My family is who I am pretty much a third generation, having had worked in the Atlanta public school system here in Atlanta. I'm actually third generation. My grandmother worked, my mother and my aunts worked within the school system as well, and then I worked in the school system for a time as well. So education has been a part of my family for generations, quite literally. So it was a thing to read and write, and read and write well. So it just kind of became this own evolution, in a manner of speaking.
Okay. And are you self-published?
I am a hybrid. I actually, my Nubian Underworld series and my Kink PI series are currently in house with Simon and Schuster. And then from there, after I got done with my contractual obligations with them, with both of those series, I went independent.
Okay. And did you experience any writer's block?
No, I don't really. It's not a matter of writer's block, in a manner of speaking. I think what happens is that sometimes life just happens. It's not necessarily that you run into a writer's block per se. It's just that you've got other things that need to get done. And that's what it was. I mean, for me, it wasn't necessarily a matter of writer's block. It was a lot of there was a lot of stuff that I had to deal with from a familiar sense. I've literally had to, over the last 2 years. I actually, let me think, 17, yeah, part of 2017, all of 2018, and then majority of 2019, I dealt with a variety of different health scares and other things that I was dealing with both my wife and then eventually my father. 2017 and 18 was medical issues, including breast cancer with my wife, that finally kind of resolved itself over the course of 2019. And then I lost my father to lung cancer in early 2019 as well. So writing was not on the books for me as far as that was. I still released stuff, but it was writing that I had already kind of canned in a lot of instances. I do a lot of writing on a daily basis, so it's like stories pop up and I always use them. So I never know when I can use them, and it came in handy during that time.
Okay. Now tell us about your books.
My books can span from romantic suspense, erotica romance, pure erotica, paranormal romance, and I also have erotic mystery as well. That's what my Kink PI series comes in at that point. That is an erotic mystery series where I have my private investigator quite literally handling crimes that are of the sexual nature. It is quite literally SVU on steroids.
Okay.
The other titles I have within the Nubian Underworld series is the first one is The Awakening. That one actually I released in 2013 under Strayboard Books, Zane, as far as her imprint is concerned. Then 6 months later was Legacy. That was the second book in that series. And then the third book was Tempest. That one is that completed the 3-book series that I had with them. And then the fourth one I released on an independent. That one is called Samoa. Each of the books within the series are completed books. They do have some storylines that will bleed into the next book, but as far as the main story arc that I wanted to have happen, it's a beginning and end. So it's easy to read each of the books themselves, in and of themselves, in that particular regard. The 5th book in the series that I'm releasing next year, that one is called The Paramour Code. And that one is going to be its own I won't say standalone. That's hard to say. It kind of bleeds over from other books in terms of a lot of the things and a lot of the aspects that I used in the earlier parts of the series. But I always like to try and tag and kind of intertwine so that people can kind of go back into the first sets of the books and see where I was talking about in that regard. I still give enough that you can see and get the gist of it, but at the same time, I still want you to go back to the beginning.
Right.
With regard to Kink PI, each of the books, again, standalones, I usually handle about 2 cases per book with regard to what he has to get done and the type of things that he needs to have handled. He is a former Atlanta police detective who decided to go into business by himself because he was sick of the politics and such. He's got two different women detectives that are with him that still work for the two specific divisions within the Metro Atlanta area. So between the 3 of them, it's a lot of play when it comes to a lot of the things. My Nubian Underworld series is BDSM themed. So anybody that's really into dominance and submission, into a lot of kink and fetish play, that's my series with regard to that. I do a lot of it within Kink PI as well, hence the reason why it's named as such. But it's not as pronounced. I focus more on the police procedural and the mystery aspects with regard to Kink PI. From there, my independent projects, I actually started with In Service to the Senator. In Service to the Senator is my other romantic suspense book, but that one is politically themed. I have a senator that's basically running on the ticket for the presidential ticket, and during that time, his wife unfortunately was kidnapped in the midst of the campaign. So he's literally trying to run a campaign with his running mate and also trying to recover his wife at the same time without arousing a lot of media suspicion, if you want to say. So he's been using a lot of different players within the media circuit, along with political allies and enemies, to try and achieve the goal that he needs to get, which of course is to get his wife back. From there, I went into I won't call it contemporary romance. It's not so contemporary because as far as Unthinkable is concerned, Unthinkable is my romance in the sense that I deal with a polyamorous relationship, one man, two women. I'm actually looking at flipping the paradigm and doing one woman, two man, hopefully in 2021 as well, because I'm all about balance when it comes to storytelling. I can't tell it on one end and not tell it on the other. So that's where Unthinkable comes from. My poly triad, he is a up and coming photographer that wants to be a filmmaker. One of the women is part of a singing group, and the other is a international model. So there's that with regard. From there, I moved into the paranormal world with The Devil's All American. The Devil's All American is a paranormal romance. I actually dealt in angels and demons when it came to that, where basically my main character, as far as Keenan is concerned, he is a college basketball phenomenon who is literally looking to go to the next level as far as going into the pros, but he ended up having a near career ending injury, and that's where my villain shows up with a deal of the century. Can I, if I get you back on track, what will you give for me? And he basically ends up saying, will you give me your soul for a second chance, so to speak? So that's where that particular storyline comes from. You gotta go through the ups and downs and some of the emotional roller coasters as far as what he was dealing with and realizing the depth of what his decision was and whether or not he could get himself out of it. From there, that's where we come full circle with Love, Lust, and Beautiful Liars. That is my most recent one after I got done with everything with those.
Okay. And how long did it take you to finish Love, Lust, and Beautiful Liars?
3 months.
Okay.
I've gotten quite adept at figuring that out. As a matter of fact, it was 2 months to actually get the actual research done, and then I actually wrote it during National Novel Writing Month, which is where we are right now.
Okay. And the Nubian Underworld, how did you come up with the cover?
Actually, that was a concept cover that I did with Keith Saunders, Marion Designs. He's the one that kind of got with me to figure out the cover design on the very first cover. He felt like he wanted to be a bit subtle, so to speak, and I wasn't feeling it. So we kind of had to go back and forth, figure out, what we wanted to get at that point. And then we finally came to a happy medium where, I was able to get my rope part in, and he was able to get what he wanted with the sensuality of it all. And yeah, it turned out pretty good.
Okay. And tell us where we can purchase your novels at.
My novels can be purchased personally from me at ShakirRashaan.com. I actually sell books personally to be personally autographed and shipped from my location. You can also get them literally anywhere that books are sold. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. Electronically speaking, Kobo, Apple Bookstore, Amazon and Books and Barnes and Noble as well. And I believe it's on this, I think majority of them are now on the library circuit, if I'm not mistaken. So if you want to have them order the ebook from your library, you can actually do that as well.
Okay.
And that would be any of them in my catalog.
And out of all of your novels, 11, right? You said?
Yes, 11 total.
Who was your favorite character?
My favorite character is probably my most recent one. I think the only reason why is because he is probably the most accomplished of the group.
Okay.
He literally speaks about 5 different languages. He is not U.S. born. He is actually of Brazilian bloodline. As far as that is, he's Afro Latino. As far as that's concerned. He also is. He was born in London. As a matter of fact, he was not born. Like I say, he wasn't born in the States. And a lot of the locations that I use, I spent very little time in the United States. I actually spent time in Brazil, in Colombia, in North and South Africa, um, also in London itself, where he was based, and pretty much any and everywhere in between for the most part. I think the one time that I spent any time in the U.S. was because his parents lived in San Diego. Other than that,
And what do you hope readers take away from reading your book?
I I always coin the phrase that I educate and titillate at the same time. You can enjoy the slap and tickle of a lot of my books. I do play and I play heavy in power exchange when it comes to the relationships that I deal with. There is a dominant and submissive in the relationship one way or another. Although it can be more pronounced in other books and it can be less pronounced in others, but you still see aspects of it, no matter what, as far as that is. That's what I built my author platform on, in that regard. I actually built it before 50 Shades became a phenomenon, honestly speaking. So I take pride in the fact that I was ahead of the curve in that regard. Um, I still play with it every so often because it's still home for me. But I've enjoyed the romantic suspense even more so at this point. Um, so literally, you get to learn a few things along the way.
Okay. And is there anything else that you would like to tell us about your books?
Honestly, the I would say in a lot of it, you can probably see a lot of pieces of me. Um, but as far as the male characters are concerned, they tend to be shadow pieces of me when it comes to my personality, when it comes to a lot of my speech patterns, a lot of my catchphrases in a lot of instances. So you'll see a lot of me in my books.
Okay. And how do you think being a writer has helped you as a person?
Interpersonal relationships. It has helped me with being able to really. I mean, I'm an extrovert by nature, but it actually helps me read people a lot better, in terms of being able to adjust to different, I guess, different mannerisms more than anything else. I mean, people have different quirks about them whenever you're speaking with them in a one-to-one situation or even in a group. It helped me in that regard, as far as that is. And then, of course, the salesman part of it as well. It kind of gives you the permission to, what's the word I'm looking for? Gives you the permission to say, to ask, and not just ask one time and go, okay, cool, you go on about your business, that type of thing. So it's helped in that regard.
Okay. And are you on social media? If so, how can we find you?
All of my social media can be found on my homepage, on ShakirRashaan.com. I've got the social media panels at the top of the homepage, in terms of where you can find me. You can just click on the button and it takes you right there.
Okay, cool. And are you a reader as well?
I am an avid reader. The majority of the genres that I write in, I read in wholeheartedly.
Okay.
The only one that I have not written in that I read in profusely is science fiction and fantasy. I am a huge Lord of the Rings fanatic when it comes to just having read that book series in one form or fashion, and was there for it all when they first came to the movie print, the movie adaptation. I was there for every last bit of it. I'm a hybrid in the sense that I love Star Trek as much as I love Star Wars.
Okay.
So that, but that's one thing that I would prefer being a reader and a connoisseur of it as opposed to a writer, because that's a whole different discipline that I don't have time for yet. I'll never say never, but that world building in that realm is, goodness, it's wild.
Well, thank you so much, Shakir, for joining me.
It is my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
No problem. All right, everyone. That was author Shakir Rashaan telling us about his books. Don't forget to like and subscribe